Hi, Founder fans, Jason here, and today's Anti-Federalist is the Impartial Examiner, essay number 3. Now, as we've discussed before, the Impartial Examiner can be a little bit wordy with their discussions, but they're down in Virginia talking about all the reasons the Constitution is terrible and it shouldn't be ratified. Now, what stands out about the third installment of the Impartial Examiner, which was published March 5th, 1788, what makes it unique is that it's written to the general public. See, when you're reading the Impartial Examiners, which again are quite lengthy and pretty, how do you say, they're very interested in showing how intelligent they are with their lengthy words. But usually, most anti-federalist papers are directed at the people who are actually going to the conventions, the men, the delegates who will be there to either ratify or not ratify. But number 3 spends a good portion of time talking directly to the general public, saying, hey, pay attention to who you're electing to these conventions. It matters. He does go on to say it should be someone who's going to vote against ratification of the Constitution. But I do want to note, at the very beginning of this, he actually says he wants to demonstrate, he realizes the delegates to the Constitutional Convention themselves are very important people, even in their day. In fact, he applauds the work of, quote, the magnanimous hero who has conducted our armies. Now, the magnanimous hero who has conducted our armies is clearly George Washington. And one of the troubles the Anti-Federalists had was, well, if you're talking bad about the Constitution, people could pretty easily say, hey, what, you don't like George Washington? Which in 1788 was not an acceptable answer. So therefore, he kind of outlines, I'm actually surprised he waited till the third installment of the Impartial Examiner to actually say, oh, no, George Washington's a hero, but he also says George Washington is a human being, and humans are subject to error, especially when they're in a room full of 50 other people, and they're deciding on a new government for eternity. And therefore, he says, yeah, okay, George Washington's great and all, but maybe he's made a mistake. We'll let it slide, of course, but maybe we should, as he said in earlier essays, that we should not necessarily just go out and accept it really quick because Washington said so. And again, I want to repeat, he spends a huge portion of this trying to get the people themselves to choose the right delegates. I will also want to reiterate, it is very wordy and it is much longer than it has to be, as all the Impartial Examiners I have found out are. Now, I do want to note, the Impartial Examiner, who is again anonymous, we don't know who it actually is. He does list a few complaints, but they are pretty much retreading standard anti-federalist fare. The supremacy clause of the Constitution, he notes, could be very dangerous. You know, anything necessary and proper. What does that mean? Anything can be necessary and proper. The idea that there's no regulations on how much taxes can be raised, and the fact that this is a supreme government, can raise whatever taxes, can put people in a terrible situation, yada, yada, yada. Again, we've covered most anti-federalists in the past. We are going to continue covering anti-federalist problems in the future, and he basically covers issues you usually have. But the real meat and bones of the third installment of Impartial Examiner number 3 is a direct plea to the people to ignore the fact that George Washington was at the Constitutional Convention and elect delegates to the Virginia Ratification Convention that will vote against the United States Constitution. I hope you enjoyed this video. For those of you watching, thank you so much. Make sure you hit like and subscribe if you're new here. Talk about American Revolution all week long.